bread, bitch.
Hello and
And welcome.
welcome to another episode of the Dense Thinkers podcast. What we have for you today is a question posed about what the most admirable trait in a person is. Both me and Ben have taken the time to think, ponder, and come to a conclusion of what we think is the most admirable trait. Now, we both don't know each other's answers, so this will be a new experience for us as well. Please enjoy.
Hello, everybody, all of the fellow dense thinkers. It's your boy Ben. Let's get the air horns. Blah, 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 blah. Let's fucking get this shit going. All right, so my trait that I think universally is the best trait in the world. Some would argue that it would be a stand, and the stand would be Zawaldo, of course. Of course, how can you go wrong? I mean, look, if you can...
Is that a JoJo reference?
Uh-huh. Alright, anyways, let's keep on track here. Alright, let's keep on track, because we're done with the train arc for Demon Slayer. We gotta stay on track, though. Reflection is the trait that I think is the most important. I think through reflection in solitude or anywhere, if you want to take the meditation as described or used by people like Descartes, who I hate, by the way, but being able to sit in solitude and reflect and think and go inside of yourself, that I believe to be the way to be able to solve any of life's hardships and adversities that will come your way. What do you think?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Any critique or any comments or critiques before I go into some of the examples or relations with Nietzsche?
No, I think that's a good trait, because if you're more reflective, you can see the error in your ways.
Yes, you can grow. You can discern for yourself what is reality. But this all is on the basis of having a healthy relationship with your mind, because I am in the camp that believes the mind is the most powerful tool that we have. Our divine consciousness is so unique and so special that allows us to be able to do so many things, but it's a double-edged sword. I know a lot of people, and I'm sure we all do, that the mind is actually the most harmful thing to them. It is antagonizing, harmfully, and very toxic self-criticalization, but like to the extreme of like undermining any potential progress or growth. That's obviously where we see a lot of these not diseases, but a lot of these I'll call them conditions, like depression, anxiety. It's the mind working against itself and its best interest, and making life actually more filled with suffering, more sufferable, less sufferable. And if we look, but even with that, even with the fact that it is a double-edged sword and it does have potential, eventually you learn how to use the sword. Eventually, through going deep within yourself, and the unconscious, eventually you learn how to use it. I mean, I've been in places before, very dark places mentally, and I've been able to work through them and work, past them, and then be able to grow and utilize the tool that is my mind for the betterment of and progression of myself. So I don't think there's any way that you're never completely trapped. So for that that's another prime reason why I think reflection is the favorable trait that everyone should have. Because there's no real dead end in terms of becoming stagnant and losing the path to progress. A lot of these analogies of looking inward, looking in a mirror, Nietzsche talks about all the time. One of his quotes on the subject of looking inward and being in solitude and reflection is, there is more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophy. I think at first when I heard that, the context in which I heard it was that he was simping hard. He was simping hard for this girl, and as we all know, when you chase girls, you don't chase girls because you'd have to chase a higher purpose and meaning. If you chase girls and that's the end in itself, then it does not work. So he was chasing a girl. He was mad, macking hard, being way too, whatever, flirtatious, whatever. He used that for, like, he wrote in a letter to a girl. I don't even think he said to her in person, to his love of his life, as he proclaimed. So initially I thought that was just like him saying you're so beautiful that it doesn't matter what you think. But the more I thought about that statement of there's more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophies, that's when the more I started thinking about it, the more I was like, wow, I can't believe I threw that much shade at Nietzsche for thinking that he was a, I mean, he was a simp for sure, but but despite being a simp, he's still able to provide us with very critically important ways in which we can improve ourselves and and contribute to a higher self. The beauty in which he's talking about that's within us and that's greater than any of our deepest philosophies is him saying that the body, the collective unconscious of millions of years, billions of years of evolution that has led to each and every one of us, like billions of years of evolution has led to me. And the more I think about that, the more I think about like what that means. What does it mean to be a human? What does it mean to be me? How do I get more familiar with my characteristics? When I look inward, I realize that there is way deeper wisdom in my own body and understanding the human experience than in any philosophy, any Kant, any Hegel, any Marx, any whatever. Just mental. I forget if he says this or someone else says this, but philosophy is mental masturbation. 100%. 100%. Spinning, as Nietzsche would say, since morality is relative, spinning any information you want into any narrative you want. It's just circle jerking with your brain. It's ridiculous. Moving on. Individuation. This ties into the going inward and the beauty and wisdom within. Individuation, Carl Jung, it's a concept by Carl Jung, of which he says you must become who you are. And I also forget if that's a Nietzsche quote or he said that specifically, but obviously Jung, huge fan of Nietzsche. Individuation is the act in which you distinguish yourself, you individuate yourself from the crowd, you learn the influences of society, or any really, you learn any external influence on you. You become more self-aware through reflection of those pressures on you, the environmental pressures, and you learn to find who you are, to become who you are. Again, all of that definitely falls into reflection, taking time to analyze and understand the processes in which are affecting your life. They are not invisible forces. Most of them are not invisible forces that are impossible to perceive. And so through reflection, you can better understand the circumstances you're in, the environment that you're in, how it's affecting you, and individuate. The interests come from within, and the archetypes. Let's talk about archetypes. Let me spell this right. I think I spelled it right. Archetypes, another Jungian psychology idea, is that there are main types of personalities and characteristics. I'll stick with personalities. There are main types of personalities that everybody in society embodies. And they come up very often. They come up a lot in stories and mythology. You'll see a lot of the same types of figures. Archetype examples, they are infinite. There's not really like a limit to them, but there's also no clear like what like where does it end, where does it start, whatever. So I'll just list a few and see if the people can if they can relate to what I'm saying. So archetypes like the wizard, the hermit, the warrior, the magician, the trickster. These are all personalities that are within the collective unconscious and that people kind of accentuate. You know, maybe I'm more of a trickster. You know, I like to be the fool for God, if you will. And some people might want to be the hermit who like to be in solitude and think heavily on ideas. And the hermit is actually the one I want to use for this example of reflection, because if you notice a lot of characters that in mythological stories share the same path, right? Whether it's Moses from the Old Testament, Jesus from the New Testament, Buddha from Buddhism. I forget who the guy is in the Bhagavad Gita. I don't think that's his name, but whatever. Yoda from Star Wars, Zarathustra from Thus Spoke Zarathustra. All of these people, if you look at them, they all share the same the same sets of characteristics. They go off, and they go off into the wilderness. They go out into the world, and they navigate it through reflection. The wizard, the hermit, they are seen always, Yoda, they're always seen in the forest, in nature, reflecting on ideas, you know, with very limited social interaction, because it can be seen as a distraction and like way more difficult to be able to reflect when you're constantly socializing with other people, which I agree with 100%. I think solitude is so necessary. And I'll conclude on that point, which I'll try and like really make more clear. But the archetypes of the hermit that is reflected in the wizard, reflected in a lot of cultures, a lot of mythology. It doesn't matter who, what, where, when, how. These same figures always seem to arise, which indicates the importance for us to be able to relate to be able to understand, oh, if I also do these things, if I also go out and spend more time in nature by myself in solitude and just think about things, just think about what's going on in your head, meditating on ideas while there's lovely birds flying around with beautiful colored wings, feathers, and they're singing, and there's deer and there's bears and whatever. Being there and thinking in solitude, reflecting about yourself and about the world, that's how you grow, and that's how you become a better you. And there you go. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, Ryan. I hope it wasn't too all over the place. I hope I kept it kind of linear and tied together. But let's hear your thoughts, concerns, questions, revelations. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to say mine first, or do you want to discuss yours, or should we wait until after?
The way my brain operates, it's better to finish up a subject and then move on, as opposed to do one subject, jump to another, then back to the first one, then back to the second one. I figured that, to me, my brain has a hard time like remembering, keeping up with.
Okay.
But let me know. We'll do whatever, bro. We'll do whatever, bro.
Let's see. So, yeah, Nietzsche being a simp.
Most important. Let's get the most important thing out of the way first.
Yeah, unreal. But I mean, it's like even though he was like this like kind of simpy, fragile, weak guy, he gave out so much good wisdom on what it means to be the overman, right? And I think a lot of people don't realize how important experience is, and how putting yourselves in different situations can allow you to see things much differently. Like I use this example a lot, but it's like how can you know what happiness is if you were never sad? That sort of thing. Like, how do you know what it truly means to be strong if you've never been weak? So it's like a weak man looking at stronger men or admirable men and seeing what traits they have that make them superior to themselves, you know? So that's kind of what I feel like Nietzsche did, was in his like weak state, sort of, and what he desired himself to become. And since he thought so long and hard about it, and wrote about Zarathustra, it's it does give great steps to becoming one's true self rather than a sheep, you know?
Yes, exactly.
And yeah, I think reflection is really important. I think when if you with people all of the time, then you adopt a lot of their mannerisms or jargon or ways of thinking, and you almost become like a hive mind if you're constantly surrounded with people all the time and don't allow yourself that time to self-reflect. And I think in isolation and embracing being alone for a period of time is how you truly discover who you are, right? Um, because like people who it's like people who are around people all the time forgo that aspect of themselves, and then I think it takes a much longer time to realize the position they've put themselves in, or the mannerisms and things they've thought are correct. Like if you're into drugs and you do like cocaine or something, and you go around people and they all do cocaine, then that's a normalized behavior. It isn't deemed as a morally wrong behavior because everyone participates. But if you try and whip out cocaine with like some sober people, you're going to be in the wrong. It's going to be a morally wrong thing to do, and people won't accept your actions as the norm. So obviously that's like an extreme example, but it's like, those perspectives and experiences and being around people all the time who normalize your bad behaviors or normalize behaviors that, or just ideas that you have. Only through isolation can you really realize like what's truly important in your life and what you like think is important. Let's see. Yeah, and Jesus preached this a lot. Like I think it was like people were looking for him for miracles, but he would escape the crowd to go into nature in order to pray and be in isolation. And that was like one of his like most important things that he did for himself, was finding that alone time to pray. So it's like very similar. It's like when you have these questions for yourself, like what do I want to do? What do I want to become? Who am I? How can you do that if you surround yourself with distractions? So going into nature and looking into yourself is really important. And then one more thing I'll add is I think I heard this quote from someone. It's like, how are you going to look into someone else's mirror to fix them when you haven't even looked into your own or faced yourself,
Beautiful.
Yeah, so it's like how are you going to fix your problems if or how are you going to fix someone else's problems when you haven't fixed your own? And there's something in like the Bible too that's like what's it called? Like if your brother has a splinter in his eye, how are you supposed to remove it if you have a log in yours?
Oof.
So yeah.
Yeah, I like the input you gave about the importance of experience. I want to tie the importance of experience. The only thing I'll add there is I guess I'll kind of tie it back into the archetype things that I brought up earlier, which is if we think about a lot of these characters, right? Their story doesn't really start. Their story doesn't really start until after they've experienced so much of the world, and so much of the wealth of experience that they have grows so much that then they're able to finely tune their understanding of the world, and then provide input to help make it better, right? So you think about Jesus, the motherfucker was born. He was the prophesied son, born from a virgin, and people came and said he's going to be the one. He's the son of God. This and that. And then what happened is nothing. You didn't hear shit until he was like 30 years old. And like people forget, or people I don't think about that. Is like that's when everyone knows Jesus, but they don't know how he got to be Jesus. In other words, he wasn't just like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he was just like praying. Yeah, I think he was always in church, and praying at a young age. But after that, when he goes radio silent until he's 30, people forget that I'm pretty sure he was just going out and living in the world and experiencing it, hanging with prostitutes, drinking wine, putting oil on his feet, being extravagant and bougie. He was out living his life and exploring it and exploring experience. And then after he accumulated this wealth of experience, was able to provide this healthy moral outlook, or at least some would argue healthy. I mean, obviously Nietzsche has his opinions of Christianity, but but you see what I'm saying about like the wealth of experience that you gain allows you to better understand the world.
Yeah, and just to tie it into the Bible again, it's there was like this one verse somewhere where it's like let me remember first. So it's those who are first may finish last, and those who are last may finish first. And something along the lines of like, those who have always been righteous will not be celebrated in heaven as those who were unrighteous and became righteous.
Whoa, that's actually excuse me. That's actually in the Bible?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's like it ties back in. It's like people do a lot of things just because they think it's the moral thing, morally righteous thing to do, or they expect a reward in exchange for their good deed that they did, and then that negates the good deed, right? So it's like, I think we talked about this before, but it's like, if you don't kill anyone, that doesn't make you a good person. If you have the capability to kill people and don't, that makes you a good person. Because it's like, if you're so fragile you won't harm a fly, then how is it righteous that you've never killed anyone?
Right, like, because you, like, literally it's not even an option, so that you can't be good because it's not even an option. That's actually, I just wrote that down because that's exactly what you made me think of. Always righteous doesn't get into heaven because, and I wrote here, no claws and teeth, as Nietzsche says. Because, like, if you're just a pussy, you just aren't living if you're literally too scared to live and to do things, you know what I mean? That doesn't make you a good person, like you're saying. You're just too scared to act. You're too scared to do things because you have to follow the rules and the guidelines of your book. It's like, go out and live the world, and then come back and reflect on it with the book. I think that's what I think that's also what the statement, or from the Bible that you said, is also saying. Is like, go out and be a sinner, not with the intent of being evil or malicious, but like go out and live, and then come back and reflect on it.
Yeah, that's what's like different between like Old Testament and New Testament. The New Testament is like the whole story of like Jesus and admitting that you're all sinners. But for me, it's like a lot of Christians that I meet, they see themselves as very weak and that they are sinners. And while that may be true, I don't get why. Like, for a Christian, it's important to aspire to be Christ-like, and but you don't have to be. It's like the same thing as Benjamin Franklin. Like, there was an idea of the perfect self for him, and he didn't even become 0.1% close to the ideal person he saw himself to become. So it's like, if you're admitting to yourself that you're a sinner and your ways are weak, and it's because you're flawed, then I think that too is a bad thing to do. I think it's good to admit that, but to become strong in adversity of that, right?
Yes. Strength makes you wiser.
Yeah. And yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I feel like that was pretty good on both of our ends. We both really added a lot to the conversation about what does it mean to reflect. I mean, we could literally talk forever about the importance of reflection, what it means, what is it tied to, but I think we got the main point across.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yep.
ready for your side, Daddy.
Okay. Alright, for me, let's see if I can say this word now. For me, the most admirable trait is discipline.
Ooh.
I think that there's not any other traits I could think of. I think reflection is a really good one, and I think that would have been my second choice. So, but for me, let's see here. The most admirable trait is discipline, because in every aspect of your life it is useful. It goes beyond trust, because someone who is disciplined you can tell a secret to and know they'll keep it, or you can ask them to be responsible about something and you know they won't like avert their gaze from like distractions. Discipline allows you to become the master of your own body and mind. And I think people who lack discipline are slaves to themselves. And there's something that Indian guru guy said that about if someone's able to control your emotions, able to freak you, make you sad, make you angry, make you happy, then they're your master because they control your emotions and how you feel on the inner world. So it's 100%. Like with discipline, you can stay calm in adversity and those who are trying to get a rise out of you.
Manipulate.
Yeah, the other thing is, you know, the quote, like, we're our own worst enemy. And, you know, if you gain mastery over your mind and body, then you can become an ally to yourself of sorts, right?
Yeah.
For me, I've always found, I think as I've gotten older, is how the way the world defines freedom isn't the way I see freedom. And, you know, it's like we're in America, land of the free, and it just doesn't feel like that at the moment, you know? And so, you know, I really aspire to become the freest man, and it's like you can't control what goes on in the outside world, but you can control what goes on within. So it's like through that self-discipline and understanding yourself, understanding your flaws and accepting them, you know, really taking a good look in the mirror and seeing yourself for what you truly are and seeing if you're happy with that rather than negating it with distractions and pleasures and things to alter the mind in order to be comfortable with who you are. Get into that uncomfortable state and put yourself in that adversity of battling your mind in order to overcome it and get that discipline. And, you know, I'm not even close, but I aspire to have perfect mastery of my mind and body. When I say I'll do something, I do it. When I promise something, I do it. When I say I'll be somewhere on time, I'll be there on time. You know, any hardship that comes your way when you're disciplined, I feel like you'll be in a much better state to overcome it than an undisciplined person. I think also when you are unable to keep your own promises to yourself, that leads to a lack of confidence. You know when I feel like that leads to a you know, a lot of those people who look like the tough macho guys and then, you know, they're not, or the people who are achieve all these things that people want and have money and power and all that, but they're still scumbags, you know? Mm-hmm. And, you know, aspiring to be like mere people is like just crazy to me because it's like everyone's so flawed. How can you admire someone who has their own issues? You know, it's like you should aspire to become the most perfect version of yourself you can achieve. And it's like you won't get that from trying to mimic or copy someone else. You know, that's where the self-reflection comes in, and isolation, and taking a good hard look at yourself. And yeah, I think overall it's like whenever I'm in like a state of lack of discipline, it just feels like I have no control, or I'm almost like living like a sheep, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like if you're not structured and have like eating at the same time, waking up at the same time, it's like I feel like the world around you becomes disoriented because you're unable to basically keep track of your own actions. Let's see. Yeah, there's a quote I wrote here. A few quotes from Nikola Tesla. He said, "I could only achieve success in my life through self-discipline, and I applied it until my wish and my will became one." So it's like I feel like a lot of people are unable to achieve their goals and dreams and give up because they lack the self-discipline, and it's not a easy task, right? I think I'd say the majority of people lack self-discipline. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
And
I mean, it like it's not a binary yes or no, black and white situation. It's there's a spectrum of discipline, and I would say that most people, I would say everyone has self-discipline to a degree. I don't think there's anyone that has complete no discipline, but it's just most people don't have a good, not control. Don't have good control, but don't like them on the spectrum are very low with the self-discipline,
yeah,
including myself. Like I'm not trying to downplay other people, you know. I need to work on self-discipline. I'm definitely down there, you know. We're still working on it.
yeah, it's like, I mean, that's why you can look at people at the pinnacle of their social hierarchy, and why I guess like with the many negatives that technology brings, it also brings so many positives. Like if your inner circle is lacking discipline and you have no outside perspective of what it means or what you can achieve with true discipline, then you'll never be able to understand or see it for what it is, right? Like I think a good example is someone who's disciplined is Kobe Bryant.
Right.
Yeah, there's like so many stories of him. Like he just won like the championship game and he was in the gym an hour later working on his shots. This one guy said, "I'm gonna be like the first guy up and go and train early." He got up at like 5 a.m. And when he went into the kitchen, Kobe Bryant was there with his knees wrapped in ice in a full sweat and already trained. And would train like 3-4 times a day. And he said, when I train 1 hour longer than everyone else, it's like after 1 or 2 years, you'll see a great improvement in your game. But it's like after 5 years, no one will be able to like basically catch up. Because you've added so many hours to your game that people were like, "Oh, I'm done with practice. I'll just go home." You know, those who were like they do the bare minimum in order to succeed, and then it's those who go above and beyond what people think is just normal, or they go along with everyone else. Like everyone else is going home, I'll go home too. So it's those sort of things like that make people special. I think it's one of those traits that someone who is very disciplined becomes someone special and extraordinary.
100%.
There's yeah, so Napoleon said that self-discipline is the starting point of all great achievements. And he was able to achieve quite a lot. Except for Russia, which was sad for him, you know?
Fucking rip. I mean, and that's not, I think that's just a universal. It's a universal impossible act to do is to conquer Russia. I mean, he tried it. The Germans tried it. I'm pretty sure the Gauls tried it. The Viking Norwegians and shit way back in the day. But like Russia's just a different fucking beast.
Yeah. But
Listen, when you have baby Khabib wrestling a fucking bear, like yeah, Dagestan, baby.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go against Russia, especially in the winter.
Mm-mm.
So that's why I found that stoicism is such a great gateway to good discipline. Because like I think that's one of like the main traits of being a stoic is having discipline over your mind. And Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength." So I mean, it's how many people dictate their mood upon what goes on the outside of them, on things they can't control. You know, it's like you spill the milk. You know, are you gonna cry over that spilled milk, or are you just gonna clean it up? And it's already happened. You know, are you gonna let that affect the rest of your day? I think it's so important that people really try and achieve that kind of self-harmony where what happens within themselves is what they can control. Like control freaks where they need everything to be their way or they're gonna implode. But yeah, that's like pretty much all the points I had, but yeah, stoicism is just such a interesting way of thinking, and it just seemed to work so well when you read a lot of these Stoics' works, how sound of mind they are and their understanding of what it means to live, and in their self-reflection find those answers within themselves.
Yeah, I never thought about that. I haven't put too much thought into Stoicism that much, mainly because it is a powerful tool. Nietzsche actually he did not like go to town bashing it because I think he had an appreciation for Stoicism. But his only his only contention against Stoicism was that it makes you numb to the pain and to the not numb, but like it makes you be able to handle pain better and suffering and all that. But it also like does the same for happiness and for joy. It kind of steals a little bit of that too. And when that's his only critique, then I know that Stoicism is like a very profound movement of progression. And when you brought up the discipline thing, that just solidified it even more. I mean, there's so many great names in Stoicism that come up. Obviously Marcus Aurelius. There's ancient Greeks. Was what's his name?
Most of the ancient Greek philosophers did get into Stoicism. Seneca was another one.
Yeah, that homie. That's one of the major homies.
So, the three main Stoic virtues are wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. And then there's 9 common traits they usually have, which is good judges of value, sound aim and preparation, shrewdness and ingenuity, tough on themselves, understanding of others, modesty in speech, dress, and lifestyle, taming the tongue, listening more than talking, kindness, fellowship, and fair dealing, and then bravery is serving the common good. So, basically, like, I feel like Stoics, like, they just wanted to become the best citizens, right?
Yeah.
You know, becoming someone who did not flash their wealth, dressing modestly, not bragging or boasting, being rational. And, it's like something that when you allow your emotions to take over what you truly think, like when people say things out of anger or whatever, and
oh, that wasn't really me.
Yeah, but it's like
come on, babe, take me back.
Yeah, I think there's like a really good thing. There's like something called like well, it's hard these days because like we have instant messaging, so
instant gratification.
Yeah, so when you're like angry at someone and you text them, and it's like there's no taking that back. And I forget who I read it from, but like some old author, whenever they were angry or upset with someone, they would write down all of their, like what they would want to say at that moment, and then they would put it in a drawer for like 3 days, and then take it back and reread it and be like, is this something I truly want to say?
Which is very stoic.
Yeah, and it's like people really I don't think realize the importance of their words and how it can affect others. I think Jordan Peterson said this about someone. They were like, I just have like 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he was like, that's insane. Like, you don't realize the influence you have on those people, and you should be very careful with what you put out because you're influencing so many people. And I think, yeah, what you said, the instant gratification and a shortened attention span is allowing things to just, people put things out there into the world very quickly without thought and spending time reflecting on what they're doing and saying.
Yeah, you can't wait 3 days to reply to somebody, bro. People will fucking get on your case, or it'll be like a negative strike against you. Like, if I wait 3 days to respond to something because I want to think about it properly, like, unless I say that, well, obviously I feel like you should say that given the time period, although I shouldn't feel like you have to say that. But, like, in most situations, you really can't do that. You have to kind of, boom, right now, trust your instinct and just go. And then normally I would agree with that, except that we are both irrational and rational beasts, and that finding a common ground between them is where you're probably going to be the most happy. And so, like, with serious confrontations with your loved ones or whoever, taking time is going to end up helping you in the long run.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Fuck, you said something. A thought that I had, which just goes to show we actually have to be really careful also with, like, being aware with how much we know and how much we're basing something off of. For the longest time, I just made the judgment that Stoicism was like a negation of life, but only am I realizing through talking about it more, it's more like, in most cases, an affirmation of life. You are living life. You're feeling the anger. You're feeling the joy, the sorrow, the pain. You're sitting with it. You're reflecting on it. You're meditating on it. And then you're after the thoughts or whatever have fully matured, are you contributing again to, the conversation or to the events or whatever. And so it's actually not. I was wrong. I had a wrong assumption about it, and now I need to whip myself at least 69 times.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all a learning experience, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I'll end with a quote here, and if you have anything else to say, we can get some more things out there. But this is a quote by Marcus Aurelius, as we were talking about Stoics. And he said, "In your actions, don't procrastinate. In your conversations, don't confuse. In your thoughts, don't wander. In your soul, don't be passive or aggressive. In your life, don't be all about business."
I like that. All right, yeah, that's a good place to end. That was perfect.
All right, thank you for tuning in, and if you will, please like and subscribe, leave a comment, leave your thoughts all below. Thank you.
Arigato, senpai.
Arigato gozaimasu. Hey.